Unexplained rules at a sinister school in New Mexico. The terrifying truth revealed. Rachel's heart raced as she entered the quaint town of Taos, New Mexico. The mountains loomed like ominous guardians over the streets, their shadows throwing eerie shapes against the pastel buildings. She was searching for a fresh start with her son, Ethan, hoping the picturesque scenery would wipe away the memories of her dark past. But whispers carried on the hot desert winds, a chill ran down her spine. Something unnatural lurked beneath the town's friendly facade. The local school was a looming brick building, its windows reflecting the fading sun like eyes watching her approach. A knot tightened in her stomach. Rumors etched lines into her brow as she heard parents whisper about strange rules. No talking in the halls, avoid the dark paths after sundown, and most disconcertingly, stay away from the watcher. At that moment, a shudder coursed through her, prickling the back of her neck. Surely, these must be local legends meant to scare children into behaving. Yet as Ethan rushed home with wide, terrified eyes, those legends morphed into nightmares. "Mom, I got in trouble for talking to Leo." His voice trembled, the excitement of school replaced by raw fear. Rachel's blood turned cold. Leo had vanished days before, just like the chilling tales of children who went missing without a trace. With every passing day, Rachel's unease bloomed into a thorny vine of dread. The community once filled with warmth now seemed to cast long, foreboding shadows, where whispered conversations rose and fell unnaturally. Those faces once familiar draped in normality wore veils of obsession, their eyes unaware but knowing of some monstrous secret. Night after night, as the sun surrendered to the horizon, Rachel could feel the grip of darkness tightening around the town, her uneasiness clawing at her gut. The surreal atmosphere felt thick, like fog wrapping her like a sinister blanket. What was this place? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Rachel began to investigate, each revelation splintered her mind. Neighborhoods she once walked through felt unwelcoming. Smiles turned into tight-lipped frowns when she mentioned the school. A father had stared too long, eyes filled with a blank fear, too afraid to voice what he knew. The stories of the watcher intensified, swirling around her like the dusty winds. Faint echoes of distant screams seemed to link to the whispers of the missing children, fading away into the twilight. Suddenly, a betrayal struck her like a knife in the gut. The one person she trusted, a source of comfort, turned manipulator. Her skin crawled as she realized their dark connection to the twisted lore of the Watcher. Fear gripped her chest, consuming her thoughts, and her heart pounded like war drums. With a clock ticking down the seconds of innocence, Rachel made one decision. She wouldn't let Ethan fall into their pattern of despair. As the moon hung heavy in the sky, she prepared for a treacherous night journey to uncover the truth and to save Ethan from being swallowed whole by the shadows. Where was the safety she so desperately searched for? The time for action was now, and the danger was only beginning. The night wrapped Taos in a shroud of darkness. Street lamps flickered as Rachel stepped out into the unsettling silence. Every shadow took on a life of its own, morphing into grotesque shapes that danced along the edges of her vision. With each step, her heart hammered a relentless reminder of the weight of her mission. She moved cautiously, following the winding paths through the community that once felt inviting but now chilled her to the bone. The whispers of the missing children echoed in her mind. What had happened to them? How long had the Watcher stalked this town? The urgency clawed at her, propelling her forward despite the creeping fear. The school loomed at the end of the street, its dark silhouette a specter against the moonlit sky. Just as she reached the gates, a low crack echoed nearby, reverberating through the still air. Rachel froze. The sound had come from the darkened windows of the school. Was something inside? Clenching her fists, she darted toward the entrance, her breath hitching in her throat. She needed answers. She had to confront the Watcher. The heavy door creaked open, protesting her entry. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust, as if the very walls were frozen in time. A flickering overhead light cast erratic shadows against the hall. The oppressive silence weighed heavily, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Shadows twisted and writhed as Rachel moved cautiously down the corridor. Suddenly, a faint sound broke through the darkness. A child's laughter echoed hauntingly from the depths of the school. It sent shivers racing up her spine. Ethan. Her heart surged with panic, tearing her away from her disbelief. Was he really somewhere in this building? Ethan. She called out, her voice breaking the eerie stillness. The laughter stopped abruptly, swallowed by an unsettling silence. Cold sweat trickled down her back. What was happening here? She stepped forward, drawn by a strange pull that urged her deeper into the bowels of the school. The hallways twisted like a maze, leading her to rooms filled with forgotten toys and scattered papers. Felt like a graveyard of innocence. Was the Watcher really looking after them, or had they become prey? Rachel opened a door at the end of a dimly lit hall. The room was barren save for a single chair positioned in the center, facing a wall covered in sketches doodles of children. Their eyes wide with fear, splotches of dark ink suggesting something sinister circling around them. She felt bile rise in her throat. Suddenly, her phone vibrated violently in her pocket. Startled, Rachel pulled it out and saw a text from a number she didn't recognize. Leave now. You don't want to know. Panic surged through her. This was no friendly warning. It was a final, desperate plea she couldn't ignore. But before she could react, a chilling whisper slithered through the air behind her. Why are you here? Spinning around, Rachel found herself face to face with a figure emerging from the shadows. A tall, gaunt presence that seemed to pulsate with darkness, its eyes glinting like shattered glass. The Watcher. Before she could scream or flee, its voice resonated in her mind. You should have stayed away. The world narrowed into darkness, and every instinct screamed for her to turn and run. But where could she go? What about Ethan? And then, just as quickly, the figure melted back into the shadows, leaving her breathless and frozen in place. But the whispers began again, wrapping around her like a noose, tightening and pulling her deeper into the abyss. What would it take to escape the nightmare? What hidden rules governed this place of terror? Desperation gripped her tightly as she prepared to confront whatever was lurking in the darkness. But would she find her son, or would she, too, vanish into the unknown? The whispers curled around her, slithering like fingers across her skin. Rachel felt her heart race, a frantic beat echoing in her ears. Shadows danced just out of reach, teasing her with possibilities of what might lurk within their depths. Every instinct screamed that she was not alone. Fighting the tremor in her hands, Rachel stepped further into the classroom. The air was thick, smothering, as if it didn't want her there. The wall of sketches seemed to mock her, the children's faces frozen in terror, their eyes pleading, as if they saw something she couldn't see, something looming behind her. She dared not turn around. Why are you here? Demanded a voice, thin and taunting, like ice scraping against stone. Rachel swallowed hard. I'm looking for my son, Ethan. A low chuckle rolled through the air, causing her skin to crawl. He was never meant to be found. Something shifted in the shadows. Rachel could almost feel the weight of the Watcher's gaze boring into her back, studying, waiting, trying to escape that oppressive stare. She spun around, determined to face her fears. But what she saw sent a jolt of terror through her veins. The room had changed. The familiar classroom now resembled a twisted funhouse. Desks were turned on their sides, chairs lay in disarray, and a thick, rotten smell permeated the air. It felt as if the room itself was alive, pulsating in a grotesque rhythm that echoed in time with her heartbeat. Ethan? Rachel called out again, a desperate plea barely escaping her trembling lips. Silence, thick and suffocating, filled the space. The exposure left her raw, amplifying her fear. And then, she heard it, clearer now a soft whimper. "Help me?" came a tiny voice from somewhere in the chaos, barely a whisper but enough to propel her forward. Racing toward the sound, Rachel stumbled, nearly tripping over a broken toy. The instant she touched it, a cold wave surged through her, pinching her skin, as if something dark had latched onto her. She yanked her hand back, boiling with fear yet unwilling to retreat. "Do you see?" the voice crooned. "They need someone to follow to give in." Though she longed to flee, something compelled her forward. The unspeakable weight of the Watcher loomed over her, heavy yet unseen. Desperation lingered in every breath as she moved deeper into the heart of the school. The whimpering echoed louder, a clarion call for help that she couldn't ignore. Rachel reached a door at the end of a block of forsaken classrooms, its surface marred with scratches, like claw marks etched into the wood. Her breath hitched. Could Ethan be behind this door? Or was it just another trap laid for her? "Open it," the whispers taunted, wrapping around her thoughts like tendrils of smoke. In that moment, dread sank deeper than fear. She felt the push and pull of bravery battling against the instinct to flee. The world outside faded, the streetlights no longer a comforting glow but fading embers in the distance. All that remained was her resolve and the relentless cries for rescue. Gathering every ounce of courage, Rachel's hand shook as it reached for the doorknob. What awaited her on the other side? Nothing good ever lay in wait when the shadows beckoned. She twisted the knob slowly, knowing this might be the moment that determined her fate. The door groaned open, and darkness poured out of it like ink spilled across a canvas. In the abyss, she could just make out a figure, a small silhouette crumpled against the far wall. "Ethan?" she whispered, her voice trembling. But the figure's head snapped up, revealing an empty gaze, devoid of life. "You shouldn't have come here." A rush of panic surged through her, but the door behind her slammed shut, locking her in. The Watcher had marked her now, and escape was no longer an option. With terror gripping her heart, Rachel faced the darkness inside, knowing that she was now part of its dread. But was this really the end? Or just the beginning of an unrelenting nightmare? And then, she felt it, a faint touch on her shoulder, cold and shivering. "What will you do now?" a voice whispered, sending icy dread through her very core. Rachel's breath caught in her throat as panic surged. She swung around, but the darkness seemed to reach out, swallowing her whole. What stood behind her was a mass of shadows, twisted forms that writhed like snakes. She couldn't see their faces, yet the echo of their laughter was familiar, taunting her, gnawing at her sanity. "Let me go," she shouted, hands balled into fists. Her voice cracked in the silence, reverberating against the walls, but nothing answered except the faint echo of her own desperation as the shadows pressed inward. She stumbled back, bumping against the wooden door. The watchful presence loomed larger, suffocating her. She turned, frantic, to the figure crumpled against the wall. It was small, vulnerable, yet the lifeless eyes held no promise of comfort. "Ethan?" she pleaded. "Is that you?" The figure tilted its head, and she caught a glimpse of cracked lips stretching into a grin. "You shouldn't have come here," it repeated, voice like gravel, echoing the Watcher's haunting proclamation. That grating laughter returned, swirling around her. It was then she felt the coldness intensify, wrapping around her like an icy shroud. She had to break free. With every ounce of will, Rachel lunged for the door, but it held steadfast, a barrier against her escape. The whispers swelled, drowning out her thoughts, growing louder and more insistent. "Follow us, Rachel. Join us," they sang, seductive and sinister. The air shimmered with energy, drawing her deeper into the nightmare. Flickers of memories played in her mind, Ethan's laughter, their afternoon walks, the warmth of his embrace. Her heart twisted in anguish. "Where are you?" "I will find you." The laughter crescendoed, and for a fleeting moment, she believed she could see a glimmer of her son in the darkness. She blinked, and it was gone, leaving only the hollow figure before her, now standing upright, arms outstretched like a twisted marionette. "Come play," it crooned, voice slipping between childlike whimsy and malice. "It's so much fun here, No! Rachel screamed, furious at the pull of the shadows dragging her toward that vacant gaze. She wanted to resist, to fight, but the weight of the shadows was overwhelming. They clung and clawed at her skin. The chill seeped deep into her bones, urging her closer. Just then, a flash of light broke through the all-consuming darkness. Rachel turned, heart racing, to see an incandescent glow spilling from a doorway further down the corridor. It was a warm, inviting radiance that cut sharply through the suffocating gloom. "Ethan!" she shouted, sensing that he might be beyond that light. The shadows recoiled as she pushed away from the empty figure, racing toward the glow. Her feet pounded against the floor, anxiety driving her forward, hoping it would lead to her son. But the laughter intensified, filled with rage, filled with despair. "You can't leave us," they hissed, their voices rising like a storm, relentless and chaotic. She reached the light, a burst of warmth and hope wrapping around her for a brief moment. As she stepped through, the chaos behind her shattered into silence. For a heartbeat, she breathed, thankful as brightness poured over her. But her relief was short-lived. The room was not what she expected. She stood surrounded by remnants of childhood creepy, unfinished drawings, tarnished toys, and shattered dreams. Each object seemed to whisper of loss and terror, a warning lingering in the air. A chilling breeze blew past her, snatching the warmth away, and the door slammed shut behind her. Rachel spun around, but there was no escape. It was now or never. "Ethan, are you in here?" she cried, panic clawing at her throat. But a single figure rose from the shadows, not small and empty, but a solid form, one she almost recognized. "You came now, you're one of us. Who are you?" Rachel's voice trembled. The figure smirked, the laughter echoing around them again, resonating with the shadows that crawled toward her. "We are the Watchers, and you've always belonged to us." Rachel's heart raced. She realized that running wouldn't save her now. The Watcher's realm encompassed her every move, rippling with the manifestations of her lost desires. "Will you surrender?" the figure asked, stepping closer, eyes gleaming in the dim light. As Rachel stood rooted to the spot, the question resonated in her bones. What price would she pay to save her son? And so, the whispers swelled, drowning her thoughts once more, leaving her at the precipice of a terrifying choice. The echoes hung heavy in the air, a cacophony of whispers that clawed at Rachel's mind. The figure before her, now fully formed, took another step forward. There was something sickly familiar about its face, as if it wore a mask of every lost childhood dream. Why are you doing this?" Rachel stammered, backing against the thin wall that felt colder than ice. "They don't want you to leave," it said, a hint of glee in its voice. "You're part of the fabric now. Every choice, every memory woven together with ours. Surrender to the desire, let us guide you." Every instinct screamed to run, but a deeper pull tugged at her heart. "Ethan's here. I have to find him." The figure tilted its head, mock sympathy pouring from its smile. "You think he's here? Lost among the Watchers?" The shadows stirred, their tendrils creeping toward her ankles, luring her into a suffocating embrace. "Join us, Rachel. It's better this way. You'll see him again. You'll understand." "No!" she screamed, fighting against the pull, each breath growing heavier, laden with despair. "I have to fight." But as she stood strong, she felt a sudden chill prickling her skin. The memories surrounding her surged. Faces of children flashed within the walls, their eyes vacant and their mouths stretched in soundless screams. They were remnants of the lost, trapped like moths caught in a spider's web. A chorus of voices chimed in. "Stay with us, stay forever, Ethan," she called out, forcing herself forward. She had to break through the suffocating haze, had to accept her reality was a twisted mirage. At that moment, a flicker of hope glimmered in the distance. A small, familiar figure darted among the shadows, innocent and bright against the encroaching darkness. "Mom!" the voice echoed, filled with warmth despite the chilling atmosphere. With renewed strength, she dashed towards it. The shadows recoiled, screeching like banshees, their laughter turning into furious howls. "You'll regret this choice," they shrieked. Panic surged as she reached the spot, heart thumping wildly. "Ethan, where are you?" But as she reached the glow, ready to embrace him, her hands grasped nothing but air. The figure vanished, leaving her encased in darkness again. Desperation clawed at her throat. "You're lying," she shouted at the watcher, anger boiling beneath her fear. "Bring him back. It is you who does not see." The entity moved closer, its eyes glistening with an otherworldly light. "He is safe. But every choice has consequences." Suddenly, the room shifted. The walls began to whisper, vibrating with energy, the drawings twisting as if alive. Pictures of Ethan laughing, playing interspersed with vicious gnashes from the watchers. Each encounter felt like a haunting, each memory dripped with pain. "Their essay price, Rachel. To find your son, tell me," she gasped, feeling the world spin around her, uncertainty crashing over her like a relentless wave. The figure stepped closer, nearly touching her. Its breath was a caress of frost. "You must give up your humanity. You must become one of us." The chill gripped her heart, and instinctively she recoiled. "No, I'd do anything but that." "Anything?" The voice dripped honey and venom as it echoed around her. "You jeopardize his life every second you resist. We are the couplets of every child that has ever been lost, and you will join our hymn or lose him forever." The choice loomed ominously before her. Should she dive deeper into the darkness, clutching the hope of her son, or reclaim herself at the cost of leaving him behind? As the shadows lunged, a scream erupted from her throat, drowning out the laughter around her. With it came the realization that she could either save herself or risk everything for the fleeting memory of her child. But were her choices already written in blood? The ground trembled beneath her feet, and all she could feel was the weight of the choice pressing down as the shadows surged like an impending storm. What would it cost to uncover the truth? The room shifted, twisting like a funhouse mirror, distorting reality around Rachel. The shadow that had taunted her slithered close, its icy breath wrapping tighter around her throat. Panic flooded her, a frigid stab through her heart. She felt unmoored, adrift. The whispers grew louder, drowning her thoughts. "Join us," they hissed. "Become part of the story," her mind raced. "No, I will find Ethan." With each heartbeat, the fabric of her sanity frayed further. Truth morphed into lies, shaking her to the core. She couldn't breathe. She slammed her hands against the wall, nails digging into the rough surface, desperate to ground herself beneath the chaos. Memories swelled, wisps of laughter and warmth, so easily snatched away. Suddenly, the room roared to life. The walls pulsed, giving way to a scene she recognized. Ethan laughing in a sunlit park. "Mom, come play." His youthful giggle echoed, yet the sight twisted into a nightmare. In an instant, he was gone, replaced by a flock of shadowy figures, their grinning visages leering at her, taunting her maternal longing. "Where are you?" she screamed, the sound ricocheting in the confined space, met with sinister cackles. "Do you love him enough to lose yourself?" The figure crooned, mocking the sincerity in her voice. "You had your chance, Rachel." The world shuddered again, and Rachel staggered. Each breath felt sharp, as though the air was made of glass. Darkness swirled around her like a hungry beast. But what terrified her most were the faces pressed against the walls, a medley of children. Eyes full of suffering, mouths locked in silent screams. They reached out, fingers tapping against the invisible barrier that separated them from freedom. She could almost feel their anguish, a tide of despair lapping at her ankles. The urge to succumb join their lament threatened to pull her under. But at the heart of it all burned her single thought. Ethan. He was out there. "Let me hear him. I'll give you anything," she cried, trembling. "You want my humanity? Take it. But show me my son." The room paused, a moment of eerie stillness as the shadows recoiled, hesitating at her desperation. One of the watchers stepped forward, eyes like a black hole swallowing light. "Anything, you say?" "Yes. Just tell me how." Her heart raced, a tumult of hope battling against the encroaching dread. They hissed in unison, voices woven with malice. Then you must relinquish more than mere flesh, you must cast away your very soul. The words twisted into her mind like thorns, and she gasped. No, I can't. Every mother's choice. Rachel, is your love worth this sacrifice? They laughed as shadows hugged her tighter, inevitable and intimate. The weight of their choice pressed on her chest, stifling, suffocating. Please, but it was too late. The darkness surged, swallowing her cries. And in that obliteration, as she reached toward him, something snapped. The world shattered around her like glass, splintering into a kaleidoscope of dark dreams. When the chaos quieted, Rachel found herself in an endless void where echoes of her pleas morphed into a choir. And there, amidst the swirling despair, a single figure stood: Ethan, silhouetted against the gloom. Mom! He reached out to her, his voice sweet as honey but tinged with uncertainty. Ethan. She ran toward him, but tendrils reached for her from every side, quickening as if sensing her intent. Don't! He shouted, panic illuminating his features. You don't know what it means to come here. Her heart buckled. What do you mean? The darkness wove tighter, forming knots of fear as the shadows whispered, looming closer in anticipation. Join us, Rachel, or lose him for eternity. Every fiber of her being quaked. What sacrifice would it take to keep her child safe? As she fought against the encroaching dread, Rachel realized the weight of a choice yet to come, a choice for love or a choice for survival. As shadows enveloped them both, she steeled herself, ready to dive into the depths of the unknown. Could she confront the darkness and free herself, or would she lose the last glimmer of her son forever? What awaited her on the other side? The void trembled, its chill biting deeper into Rachel's bones, as she struggled against the tightening grasp of shadows eager to pull her away. Ethan's face blurred, shifting like a mirage. Hope flickered weakly in her chest, the only light against the encroaching darkness. But the whispers of regret and despair echoed like a song of doom. Mom, please! Ethan's voice wavered, a tether fraying. You can't stay here. You'll become one of them. What do you mean? Rachel gasped, her tepid breaths mixing with the damp air. Panic twisted inside her. The thought of losing him again sent her into a frenzy. I won't let them take you, Ethan. Suddenly, the ground beneath her felt alive, writhing like a serpent. It pulsated in sync with the shadows, each thud of its heartbeat resonating through the air. The twisted laughter grew louder, cacophonous, shredding her resolve. Foolish mother, the voices hissed, a cascading echo that licked at her sanity. He's already part of us. No, no, Rachel shouted, taking a step forward despite the agony clawing at her heart. Ethan, fight them! But the black tendrils thickened, coiling around his feet, dimming his light. Mom! His face twisted in fear as he was yanked back, deeper into the chaos. Her heart raced, adrenaline surging. She lunged toward him, but the shadows tightened their grip. Ethan's eyes grew wider, terror reflecting back at her. They'll consume you both. You need to leave. The darkness lunged, trying to seize that flicker of hope, warring against the love that coursed through her veins. I can't, she cried out. They'll take you. Mom, choose. His voice echoed, intertwined with the whispers. Someone has to break free. Those words stabbed her, carving a deep wound. Choose. It hung in the air, a looming specter of despair. The weight of the decision crushed her lungs, the heaviness of parenthood melding with an unimaginable horror. The shadows closed in again, pushing them further apart. Heart racing, she weighed their love against her own existence. Did she have the strength to make that sacrifice? A cry bubbled within her, a mixture of rage and sorrow. Suddenly, she remembered the faces in the walls, the haunting children waiting for a lifeline. Could she save both of them? Instinctively, she began to chant, her voice breaking through the darkness. I'm willing to fight. I want to be another forgotten shade. Lead me to the light. The shadows recoiled, a deafening sound like the growl of thunder. Ethan was still pulled backward, his frightened gaze piercing into hers. Mom, don't. I'll give everything. She shouted, tears streaming down her face, the resolve crystallizing within. You can have it all. Just save him. A silence fell, profound and mocking. Then, with a shattering shriek, the darkness surged, claws curling around her soul. She felt a shift, the essence of her being dangling like a fragile thread. Tendrils pulsed through her, probing, searching for the core of her love, her humanity. Do it. The shadows slithered closer, voices velvety and sinister. Surrender and embrace the void. Rachel steeled herself, believing that perhaps this would be enough. I choose love. I choose Ethan. Suddenly, the ground beneath her fractured, splitting open like a yawning abyss. Ethan's scream echoed, mingling with the shadows as he was wrenched away. No, she screamed, reaching futilely toward him, desperately attempting to bridge the widening chasm. The void rumbled ominously, but she felt something latch onto her hand, a flicker of warmth against the cold dread. The darkness recoiled, slashing at her now, but there was a glimmer, a light. Rachel! A voice echoed, not whispered but thunderous, a warning. He is not what he seems. The world fell away, and all that remained was the blinding light threatening to scorch her very soul. What twisted truth awaited her in that light? Would she find Ethan or something far worse? The light enveloped her entirely, its brilliance seeping into her very core. Rachel gasped, the warmth contrasting sharply with the cold dread that had clawed at her since this nightmare began. It burned, blazing like a sun that had forgotten the boundaries of the universe. She felt her soul stretch, twist no longer tethered to the earth. Images flickered in the blinding glow. She saw Ethan, his face clouded with sorrow, eyes filled with dread. It was a moment of stillness, the world resonating with a heartbeat that didn't belong to her. A terrible understanding swept through her. Something insidious lay coiled beneath her love for him. Rachel! The booming voice returned, shattering the fragile calm. This is not a rescue. This is a revelation. She stumbled forward, blinded yet driven by the instinct to find her son. Around her, glowing shapes took form, figures of children, faces twisted in agony. They seemed to float, moving uneasily in the light, faces pleading for release from whatever torment held them. They reached for her, their soft, ghostly hands stretching out as if to pull her into their world, a world that looked unreal yet omnipresent. Help us, one whispered, its voice layered with despair. It echoed, blending with the terror that knotted Rachel's stomach. Save us, Ethan, she shouted, her heart quaking beneath the weight of their hope. She tried to anchor herself in the moment, to resist the spiraling rush of fear. Where are you? Mom! The sound of his voice fractured the air, a haunting cry crackling like electricity. Get out. They're lying. They just want you to stay. The colors around her twisted into ominous shades, transforming the previously comforting light into something sinister. The children's faces morphed into contorted masks of laughter, their mouths widening abnormally, screams escaping in equal measure of delight and horror. Listen, the thunderous voice pressed, an imperious command edging with urgency. You must awaken. It's all a trick. The warmth fell away, replaced by an icy grip that threatened to shatter her spine. Rachel felt the shadows rising again, clawing at her mind, a familiar chill she thought she had escaped. They hummed in unison, a dark melody beckoning, enticing her with the promise of eternal safety. Choose. Rachel, the children joined the shadows, their voices weaving into one overwhelming chorus. Join us and you'll never lose him. No, Rachel shouted, horrified. I refuse. With that, she pushed against the tide, her spirit flaring with desperation. She felt the fabric of reality strain beneath her will. The shadows roared, shrieking as if they were being torn apart. The children around her wailed, their faces contorted in agony, shadows of their former selves. But despite the resistance, the whispers slithered back, rooting deep within her thoughts. But what if he is already lost? They taunted, sending tremors through her resolve. The light flickered, the moment of grandeur collapsing into chaos. With each flicker, the light skeins recoiled, revealing shadowy figures trapped within a collection of souls once vibrant, now stilled. She felt the raw panic rise again, choking her breath. "Mom, please," Ethan's voice echoed clearer, yet it felt distant, gnawed away by shadows. "You have to get out." With determination surging through her, Rachel leapt toward the pulsing heart of light. She could feel the darkness clawing at her back, gnashing, desperate to drag her into its grasp. Did she dare enter the light, knowing it was tainted in deceit? What if it led to Ethan, or worse yet, deeper into the void? "Mom!" His voice broke her concentration, plunging her deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. Frozen. An acute choice hovered before her: grasp the light or surrender to the shadows. What awaited her in that luminous unknown? Would the truth save her or rip her apart forever? The chaos intensified, swirling around Rachel like a tempest. Every flicker of light clawed at her, its intensity a shockwave that pulsed through her body. In that moment, she was both terrified and invigorated, strength coursing through her veins as she fought against the grip of despair. "Ethan!" She screamed again, desperation fueling her voice. Each syllable reverberated through the void, a desperate plea lodged against the encroaching darkness. She felt weighed down, as if gravity had intensified, anchoring her to a ground made of nightmares. The murmur of the shadows grew louder, drowning out Ethan's distant voice. "Choose," they hissed, their tone deliberate, insidious. The light shimmered, and Rachel lunged forward, drawn toward the pulsing center of brightness that swelled with hope, yet reeked of deception. She envisioned Ethan's smile, his laughter the warmth of his embrace. That thought was a compass, guiding her beyond the seductive whispers and chilling cacophony. Just as she reached the radiant heart, a chilling gust swept through, as if the shadows themselves exhaled in defeat. She stumbled, thrown off balance, blinking against the sudden onslaught of brilliant light trying to consume her whole. The world crumbled around her even as she strained to reach out for something. Anything solid. In that endless moment, clarity pierced through the fog. "You're not lost, Ethan. I'm coming for you," she shouted, but the words seemed to unravel into vapor, dissipating into the expanding void. Against her will, she felt herself slipping. The darkness coiled greedily around her ankles like creeping vines, tugging her with a ferocity she had only ever read about in horror stories. It clawed at her legs, pulling her back not just physically, but spiritually, trying to rip away her resolve, claw out her memories of love and joy. "No!" Rachel gritted her teeth, thrusting an arm forward. Inside, she felt a surge, rising from a place she didn't know existed. "I refuse to succumb." As her hand brushed the light, warmth enveloped her arm, sending electric waves teeming through her body. But the shadows sensed her rebellion. They screamed, a facade of childhood laughter twisted into a shriek of rage, echoing throughout the space that stretched infinitely around her. "Stay with us," the shadows insisted, their voices layered with a desperation that resonated with Rachel. She saw their faces again, ghostly children pleading for salvation, and fear flickered deep within her heart. Hadn't she already sacrificed so much? How could she now cling to the vestiges of reality when part of her yearned to save these lost souls? "Mom!" Ethan's voice cut through, sharper and clearer, making her heart surge. "They're not real. They want to trap you here." With every ounce of will, Rachel wrenched her thoughts away from the shadows. "You're not my child," she roared, defiance curling like flames around her. Everything was at stake, the entire essence of who she was swam in that agonizing moment of choice. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, a rare vulnerability shimmering amidst their chaos. The light flickered, beckoning her, releasing a desperate pulse that mirrored her own heartbeat. "Rachel!" The voice shifted from booming authority to a haunting whisper. "You cannot abandon them." With every thread of her being, Rachel shattered the darkness holds, plunging into the light, her eyes reflecting determination. As she penetrated the warm glow, a shockwave rippled through her. The ground shattered, scattering divine essence while the shadows screamed in outrage. But something was wrong. The shimmer of the light fractured, splitting into a kaleidoscope of colors, revealing a vast, shifting landscape. Shadows slithered at the edges of a corridor cloaked in mist, murky and indistinct. In the distance, a figure emerged from the haze, a silhouette barely discernible beneath the wavering illusions. Was it Ethan? Or something wicked, something waiting? Mom! The figure reached out, desperation etched across its features, and Rachel's heart skipped. Her breath hitched. What was happening? What lay ahead in this unforeseen realm? The ground trembled, the light flickered, and darkness whispered behind her a siren call of surrender. Is this Eden or madness? She murmured to herself. What awaited her in this realm of blurred realities? Would she stand by her son, or would she drown in the looming darkness? Rachel stood at the edge of that ethereal realm, a churning storm of emotions swirling within her. Shadows flickered like lost souls nearby, twisting through the corners of her mind, reminding her of everything she fought against. Was this the moment she longed for, or a cruel ruse? A tear slipped down her cheek, a token of her uncertainty, as she gazed at the familiar figure ahead, her son, Ethan. Mom! He called again, the word a lifeline thrown into the chaotic sea of confusion. Hold on, Ethan! Rachel yelled, her voice shuddering, each syllable a prayer of determination. Gritting her teeth, she sprinted forward, battling the creeping shadows that lunged at her from every angle, their whispers clawing at her heart. I'm coming! In a heartbeat, she reached out, the warmth of the light enveloping her, cutting through the frigid touch of despair. She grasped at the silhouette, feeling the familiar weight of her son's presence beneath her fingertips. But as she closed the distance, the air thickened. The shadows danced malevolently, adapting, creating barriers where there had been none. The laughter of wretched children echoed louder, drowning out her thoughts, echoing in the chambers of her bravery. Don't listen to them, Ethan shouted, terror threading his tone. His eyes reflected pure panic. You'll get trapped like them. They want you to stay. The words hit with the force of a hurricane, a dark truth clawing at her resolve. I won't let that happen. We'll break free together. The shadows writhed, sensing her determination. You cannot escape, they hissed, echoing like a twisted chorus. Join us. Embrace the void. But Rachel's heart burned with love, a relentless fire that illuminated even the darkest corners of her mind. You're wrong, she howled, her voice resonating with fierce power. Love conquers this darkness. I will not lose you. With every ounce of her spirit, Rachel lunged forward once more, feelings of hope igniting a furious light inside her. The world around began to tremble, both the shadows and the light rebelled against her defiance, merging into a chaotic tempest. Mom! Ethan cried, arms outstretched. His voice was raw, piercing through the haze and hitting Rachel like a bolt of lightning. She took a step closer, feeling an unseen force pulling their energies together, unraveling the boundaries of what was, what could be. Just as they were about to make contact, a shadow lashed out, swift and sinister, attempting to snatch him away. Rachel felt it tug at her son, pulling him into the suffocating darkness. Fear gripped her heart, threatening to pull her into despair. But she couldn't let that happen, not now. No! Rachel screamed, pure rage energizing her as she felt the shadows gripping his legs. Ethan, trust me. A bright flash of light erupted, and Rachel's heart surged with strength. I'm here to save you. She took a breath, focused on their connection, on the love that transcended any horror. Together we'll fight. We won't surrender. The shadows screeched, twisting unnaturally as the fabric of their realm shook. As Rachel continued to call out to her son, the light brightened until it burst into a brilliant explosion, shattering the confines of darkness. In that split second, Rachel surged forward, wrapping her arms around Ethan. A shockwave of warmth flooded through them, scattering the shadows into a swirling mist, their horrid laughter turning into anguished cries as they dissolved into the ether. For a heartbeat, it felt as if time stood still. The world around them transformed, the corridor of mist shifted into a sunlit park, vibrant grass sweeping beneath their feet, the air heavy with the scent of fresh blooms. A sensation of safety washed over them, wrapping around Rachel and Ethan like a warm blanket. "Mom, you did it." His face lit up with pure joy, the spark of innocence and love shining bright in his eyes. Rachel's heart swelled, relief rushing through her weary bones. "I couldn't have done it without you," she exclaimed, pulling him close. In that moment, they stood united, ready to face anything together. The darkness had been vanquished, but they knew the echoes of its existence would never truly fade. It would always whisper at the edges of their lives, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. But no matter what was to come, they were prepared. Their bond was stronger now, forged in the flames of their struggle. Hand in hand, they took a step forward into the promising embrace of the sun, knowing that while the shadows may lurk behind them, love would carry them into the light. And so, Rachel and Ethan walked away from the Sinister school and its curse, their past forever imprinted yet overshadowed by the immeasurable strength of hope. Darkness may linger, but they had triumphed over it, together. As they disappeared into the distance, their laughter echoed, a melodic victory triumphing over horror. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, because every like matters. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending. Your support means the world to us.